Well, welcome. Today we're continuing our interview with Dr. Mallory Ray about, entrepreneurship.
Yes,
in our agriculture. And they have this wonderful tool called Intel for Ag that's free online. And you can use it if you want to if you're getting into a specialty crop or you're trying to maybe grow your specialty crop. But also they have folks that you can talk to also, because you have questions. Sometimes you or your staff around the state can always be helpful talking.
Yes, that's right.
So we've talked about a lot of things last time. One of the things that I had a colleague that sold at the farmer's market, and she sold vegetables, and she told me, we don't need more vendors, we need more customers. And she really wished that there was a way that they could, they don't sell on that Wednesday or that Saturday, that they could market wholesale to somebody. They could take it maybe to St. Louis or to larger places. Is there help for that, to try to make these connections?
Well, it's not so much about helping them make the right connection, because we do see like shifts in markets all the time. But what we try to help producers do is think through, what is the right way to use my surplus of the market channels I have? Have I positioned my product well in them? Have I priced it accordingly? Have I done enough customer research? And then, okay, now as I outgrow some of my markets, or this market is, declining, some of our farmers markets do struggle to attract enough customers, especially when they have to relocate, or they get a new market manager and some policies change, and there's, lots of reasons. But what you do with your seconds is a big question, because my first question back to her, it would be, can you afford to wholesale? Let's make sure that we know that answer before you go out and try to make contact and find somebody to talk to.
You'd be selling it under your production price.
Yes. Or what price do you need for those seconds? And that will help us understand what market may be most likely a good fit for you. We do have produce auctions here in Missouri. That may be an avenue. Again, it comes down to that price, however, because if you need a higher price, then maybe it's time to look at some value-added processing instead. Right. That's another option. Or maybe you need to find a partnership with a local restaurant that's not actually paying you a wholesale price, because the right type of restaurant for the right type of product, let's talk about like a specialty heirloom tomato. They're not going to sell those, by the carton. They're going to slice those, put a few on each plate. It's a elevated meal, and they're willing to pay an elevated, not wholesale price.
But you need to be able to furnish that for an extended period of time.
That's right. That's when, so again, I like to start on price. Let's talk about price and what you know about your customers. And then, okay, your current market isn't working. We need to go learn about other market opportunities. But it's not like an easy one-to-one match. It really goes back to, how much can you grow? How consistent are you? What are you willing to do? Are you just competing with everybody, or do you have something really specialty? And then what does it look like? What are your value-added opportunities to throw in the mix?
Because one of the very successful growers in Wisconsin told us one time that all of his tomatoes he can't sell, he makes into salsa.
Yeah.
But you better have a good salsa.
You need to have a competitive recipe, because there's a million salsas out there.
There is. And is there help to figure out, where do I go to get the label for it, the regulations? Because now you have a product that's going to have a few more regulations attached to it.
Right. So I'm not a food safety expert.
Oh, sure.
We do have a food science division here at Mizzou.
And they can help.
They can help. But I'll say, for our Missouri audience, we don't have a uniform food safety code here. So the best thing to do is start with your local health department, because they have the ability to set more strict rules than the state. And then depending on what product you're producing, you're going to want to talk to the appropriate state agency next.
But start with your county.
Start with the county.
That's great to know. We mentioned earlier the pandemic. Mm-hmm. How people wanted to go get out, go to the countryside, but it also has changed. The pandemic, what was starting to be trend, just pushed us, they say 15 years into the future.
We have not seen such dramatic shifts in consumer behavior that quickly in a very long time. And so what's really been interesting is that the pandemic pushed a lot of people into buying locally for the very first time. Mm-hmm. Just like going to a farm for the first time, some people were deeply scarred by going into a local grocery store and not finding food. That was a first in my lifetime experience, right? Yeah. And I think it made people a lot more concerned about our food supply system and this desire to have strong domestic food sources, and that puts a spotlight on our local farmers. So a lot of people turn to say, where can I find farmers?
Mm-hmm. Well, and so how our farmers advertise makes a difference too.
Absolutely.
You know, what worked pre-pandemic's not working now.
Well, that's an interesting, we see there's so many trends also in the way that people get information, right? And I think we're in a period of change and things haven't quite settled out. So we offer classes on marketing in Extension, and so we're doing a series right now, actually this month. And we were on the webinar with folks a week ago talking about what marketing channels work the best for you. And we had quite a few people who said it used to be social media and now, Facebook is so crowded. I make a post, no one's seeing it like they used to.
Right.
I'm no longer, a lot of my friends are leaving Facebook. I'm not even sure Facebook is good for my business. Whereas before, Facebook was really what a lot of people treated as their online front door to their business. And so as a business owner, it's so important that you're really honest with yourself about who is my target customer, who am I trying to reach, and learning about where they are. People are over print newspaper. Mm-hmm. That we've seen that time and time again. There's a lot of producers who are just also flat out scared to spend on marketing, which made Facebook attractive because it was completely free.
Right.
These are people who don't even want to pay for a website, for example. But there's such a shift in sort of what works across different areas of the state. Because while we had some people, this was a statewide webinar, we had people from all over. We had people saying, oh, it doesn't work. Somebody else said, no, it completely works. Facebook in my area is like the very best way to reach folks. And that is an example of just how different these things can happen based on your target customer.
An age group. And are you trying to sell hyper local? Do you have online stores? Who is your customer? Mm-hmm. So like you may have a front at a farmer's market, but really you'd rather have people come out. But you got to have your farmer's market so people know
great customer exposure.
Yes. But then there's more later on. And then, of course, that great experience will be spread by word of mouth, too.
Right. But then it's like the extra cost of making sure people have a great experience when they come on farm. And not everybody likes to have the public in their backyard at all hours. Because you may say that you can only come between this hour and this hour, but once people have your address, they may show up at any time.
So does the the honor system, could that be part of it too, I suppose?
Yes. Again, roadside stands are a very low cost way to sell products, but it is the honor system. And you have to sort of be okay with that and know that it's just like you pick berries. They always say, don't eat the berries.
Right.
But you know what happens.
But I have a friend who's retired from his job, and he's doing you pick blueberries, and he's encouraging me, eat some. He wants that experience to be good. And if kids come there and they drop their bucket, that's okay.
Yes.
you've got to be customer oriented.
You really do. And some people have the personality for that and the time and the willingness to manage employees. A lot of our agritourism places, they really have to staff up during their peak season. And that sometimes pushes a farmer into a brand new space for the first time. Oh, shoot, I've got all these high schoolers that I need to like monitor and train and just.
Well, we have a friend who in the fall sells pumpkins. And his philosophy is, I'd rather sell them for $4 a piece and people can get several because they want to spend about $20, $25 to $30. Whereas going to another place, they get to buy two.
Sure.
So, but he may be underselling it. If he really got his return to himself, he's not making anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to look at it that way, don't you?
He could be using those pumpkins as the loss leader for his farm. You know, to say, okay, well, they know I have the cheapest pumpkins in the county. They're going to come here. But then they're also, that's okay with me that I lose a little on my pumpkins because I have a great farm store. You know, I'm selling my beef right there as hamburger patties. I can move hamburger patties all day long. And before I had nowhere to sell all this beef. So it's a win-win.
So a loss leader is you're willing to take a little bit of loss on it to get your people there.
Yes.
Stores do that, don't they?
Of course, they do it all the time. They're sophisticated. They have a ton of data and they crunch this stuff all the time. But the savvy farmer can learn a lot from grocery stores and watching the circular ads. And, you know, it's like we said a minute ago, once you get somebody on your property, you've got them, and now you want to keep them there and expose them to as many opportunities as you can.
So we're right in the middle of the egg pandemic.
Yes.
So, and we still see some home growers selling their brown eggs for $2.50 to $3. Are they missing an opportunity when they could probably triple that price and sell out, or what?
Let's go back to who is your target customer. Because if you are a small egg producer and you have loyal customers and these customers have been good to you and you don't have to spend a lot of marketing and it's fairly easy to sell your eggs and you have high trust with your customer base and it's like they might understand and want to support a small increase. But if you were going to double your prices, you would lose them all. Potentially.
Right.
Some people are extremely price sensitive and they don't want to, no one wants to feel like they're getting gouged, right? So I think given what we're seeing, yes, producers don't want to be, now is not the time to be losing money as an egg producer. Like there's no excuse for that, right? You're not trying to stay in business. Like this is the time to make sure you're covering all of your expenses, but you've also got to be sensitive to who your customers are. And if you truly want a higher price, then maybe you need to shift markets. Doubling your price or tripling your price to your current customers could just make them all disappear.
And you won't get them back.
Yes, that's right.
Because other people that have went into the egg business will take that business.
That's right.
Just on principle.
Right.
That's just like my brother once mentioned. The grain farmers had a great year. And he said, you know, this might not be a bad year to give your landlord a little bit extra. Right. Because someday you're going to be in a tight situation and he might return the favor.
Well, and grain farmers are in that who are leasing are right now. And that is exactly right. Customer relationships are so critical. So when you're face to face with your customer, whoever that is, it's your landlord or your actual retail consumer, you've got to really be thinking about that relationship.
It all boils down to relationships.
Yes.
Whether it's a farmer's market, like coming to your farm to purchase, or even if you're selling to someone wholesale, that they know they're getting a good product from what you have. Right. So, anything else we want to talk about this Intel? I mean, what else do you offer that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, so we haven't really talked about the business startup tab, which is another feature that I've worked a lot on. So this is where, again, we built this website to try to help people work through their questions at their own pace and outside of office hours, right? So like I'm very willing to answer the phone and answer emails. I get busy though too. And so we had so many people that were interested in starting a farm and they didn't know where to start, or interested in starting a value-added ag business. So on the website, there are 6 different portals of tools. The Business Startup is one of those portals. And from there, you can access a short quiz. We don't collect any emails. We don't do anything. It's all anonymous. But answer a few questions in order to cut down the list of questions to think about.
Sure.
Print it off and then kind of work your way through that. What does it truly take to start a business from a license and legal perspective, and thinking about your product and your markets? A lot of the things we've been talking about, we actually have set up as a checklist for people, for the people who really want to be orderly. Now, there's also people who get excited about something and then the next day they're in business, and that's good too.
That's the way I would be, and my wife and I are opposites, and she's the one, we're going to go through this thoroughly. Oh, that's no fun.
Yeah. Well, other tools on the website are meant for people like your wife who really want to think through, okay, I think I want to have an elderberry patch,
right,
but what does it take? And so we have what we call management capabilities quiz. So it's just 25 questions. Again, so like no one sees the results except for you, but it helps somebody think through the different components of these enterprises so they can assess, okay, do I have the labor? Do I have the finances? What's my marketing skill set look like to really identify, okay, can I succeed? Again, this isn't crystal ball, but it's to help guide people towards, okay, here's an area of weakness. Maybe it is marketing, or maybe it's really my land availability. We have a different tool here that produces land suitability maps by different crops.
Oh, wow.
So you just do the drop down, pick the crop you want, and it pulls up a map of Missouri and shows suitability for that crop across the state. You're the production guy, the agronomist, right? Like, that's when I say, hey, talk to the agronomist, but just because you want to do it doesn't mean you can.
Well, growing up in the Boot Hill, we had pecan trees. Mm-hmm. And moving up here in this soils, I wanted pecan trees. And the forestry folks said they don't do well up here. By God, I'm growing one anyway. I've harvested like 0 pecans off my place because they were right. Because there's reasons,
right?
So we have to do our homework,
right. And that's what this tool is meant to do. It's to help people kind of do their homework, to kind of reflect on themselves, their land, their markets, and be more informed as they're looking to get in this space or expand.
And is it just for growing something, or could people make something?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think we really tailor this towards farms.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to stick with farms.
Okay. Yeah. If you're making something, it's with the produce that you've grown.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our break-even tool, which helps people kind of identify all the costs of the product they're producing so they're selling it appropriately to cover those costs. This is really useful for that grower who is buying from someone else and, pulling ingredients in. Or I like to tell people when they're working on that, if they don't know how to price their tomatoes, for example, for their salsa very well, look at what it would cost you to buy that tomato from someone else. And sometimes you're better off not growing that tomato.
Right.
Grow cucumbers, grow pumpkins, do something else. But if you have a killer salsa recipe that just really sells, find a good grower and let them grow that tomato for you.
Because you may need a specific tomato to make it really be the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And earlier you mentioned the produce auctions. Mm-hmm. Now that is your ultimate wholesale.
Well, I would call it a more accessible wholesale. Like, we have large terminal wholesale markets in the United States. The closest one here is in Chicago. That's for super big farmers, right? Our most specialty crop farmers in our state are not going to go to those terminal markets. So I see our produce auctions as a great middle ground because they operate. You can find all of them online. We have a link to it from our website, trying to help raise awareness and truly like any market, you need to learn more before you just sign up and do it. So I've visited some of these, and they're fascinating transactions. And you can buy just one or two sometimes of like one or two hanging baskets, and then they're going to sell the entire rack, right? And that is a great place to just educate yourself on, okay, what is the wholesale price? Recognizing that these prices are highly seasonal. So there's just a lot of work that you need to do in the price discovery area if you really want to succeed.
And do you all have that data, like that price of that hanging basket in April versus mid-April versus May?
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because we're trying to work on it.
Sure.
But a lot of our auctions in Missouri record everything by hand. And so there's not an easy way to digitize that. So what we've done is we've taken the USDA federal data, like the ag marketing service reports from the 11 large terminal markets. We make that more accessible to growers, and we have a dashboard for that. And working with producers, since we've put that data up, we found that producers were already using that in some cases, which we were excited to hear. And when we asked them, how are you using it? They say, oh, well, I look at that and then I either double or triple it in order to set my price.
Oh, really?
Because they know that those are prices that a large farm at a tremendous scale. And if you look at those prices too, you can gauge seasonality over the time. And I just had a grower ask me for that information. I just pulled it for him. He's looking to go into blueberries, and he said, hey, can you show me what was the price today? And I was like, well, this isn't really applicable. You wouldn't be selling blueberries today in future years. But you go to the Chicago market, and yeah, it was quoting prices for blueberries from Chile and Peru.
Oh, wow.
So as a local grower in Missouri, you don't want to base your blueberry prices off of the prices of producer in Chile and Peru. Right? Like that just does not make sense.
So is your U-Pick, let's say talk about blueberries, is that then your ultimate retail then, the U-Pick? Because I would think they'd pay a little bit more because they're getting experience and they're getting a fresh product, and they probably get to see the grower. Yes.
And that's a great way to, one advantage of U-Pick is you don't have to have the labor, right? You're basically outsourcing the labor to your customer and you're charging them a premium for the experience.
I love that.
However, you have to be willing to let them go through the orchard and do things wrong and pick blueberries that maybe weren't ready and eat a bunch and knock some off and spill buckets and all of that. I think the ultimate for a blueberry grower would be in the value-added space, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To sell, maybe you have a bakery there.
Yeah.
So maybe you have you come to my farm for this, and this, and we have blueberry muffins.
There you go. And on a per blueberry basis, you should be getting the highest price at that level. But U-Pick is a great way to move more blueberries.
But that's just a way. That's just probably evolution of your.
Yes.
You start with a few products, and then you start going more and more.
Producers have to stay nimble. The customer is changing. The competition is changing. You got to try things, and you've got to learn and adapt, take good records, reflect, and keep changing.
And maybe your customer, let's say you're selling to a restaurant that only has local foods. Having that relationship with them is important too, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Where you can get a premium, whether it's that tomato that they want for their slices or if it's the meat product.
Yes.
And they, because I know they'll often say, this is from X and X farm.
Right. They want to be transparent about that because they know their customer values that.
Right. And then if you're at that farm, you're probably selling to direct to on your farm.
You could be. Again, it goes back to sort of how much product are you trying to move?
Sure. You know, Tim, I got all excited now. I want more and more and more.
But every market you go into has a different set of costs, and it takes time. It all takes time and energy to maintain and market, and yeah.
All right. Well, this has been fantastic, Mallory. I'm ready to retire from this and start my own farm again. So
just please go to Intel for Ag first, Tim, and do some due diligence.
I'll get my wife to do that, and then she can tell me what to do.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to add right before we leave?
No, thank you so much.
All right. Well, this has been it for Tim's Take. We had a great time, and And before you start on a entrepreneurial project, check out Intel for Ag. They can solve a lot of your issues before we start. We'll see you next time from Tim's Take.
That's fun.
That was fun.